Good morning, everyone. Looks like we are live now. And as we do, and as everyone gets wound up, I'll move over to the tablet and we'll check to make sure everything is working okay, like we do. Let's do this. All right, we're working on it. And we got a few questions, I think, from this week on the from the Facebook that we'll get to, plus a couple of topics that we have going. So, but in the meantime, I got my notification on my other channel, so that should be good. That we're going around. Oh, that's an old one. Where is? There we go. Let's go to that. Oh, it's got it showing live now. There we go. We're in business, so I'll shut all that mess down. Very good. All right. Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Tom Davis, and welcome to The Ground Truth. And we're talking about what is now the new District 4 in Tennessee, or Tennessee's 4th Congressional District. We'll talk about a few things this week and answer your questions, go over some calendar stuff, get set back up. There we go. And then, we'll keep doing the thing. So, like I said, we'll give it a few more minutes here. See if let everyone jump on that is going to jump on, or however it works out. And there we go. I think I'll pull up my calendar over here. There we go. Okay. Well, let's talk a couple of events coming up that we have. The first one I'll talk about is going to be the fundraiser, and that is on the 5th of June, and it is from 4 until 7 p.m. You'll see postings on Facebook about that with all the details on it. But we will be at the Victory Center in Morrison, and we are having a cornhole tournament with cash prizes for that. So be sure to show up for that. And then I think it's 5542 Morrison Highway. Let's see. I can pull that up real quick and give you the exact address. Let's see. No, that's old stuff. Now, go over to, got to find out where it is. Here we go. Yep, so cornhole tournament, and it is Victory Center, 5542 Manchester Highway in Morrison. And for the cornhole tournament, we will be doing $15 for individual entry and then $25 for the team entry. Cash prizes are awarded, first and second place in each of those categories. Hey, and you teams, you have to split. You have to split your winnings. Prater's Barbecue is providing the pulled pork for that. And then, so where are we at? Yeah, I think we're doing, we didn't say on there. All right, on the write-up, though, let me get over to that. Yeah, dinner plates for the adults with the pulled pork, 2 sides, drink and a cookie, $15. And then we have a kids meal at $8. It's one hot dog, one side, a drink, and a cookie. So come on out for that to the Victory Center. That should be a good time. And then, like I said, we are offering, we will be having cash prizes. So make sure you bring your friends, have them sign up and play some cornhole, and then we'll go from there. So that event, that's the fundraiser. Town hall, we're leaning forward into that, and that is on the 20th of June. So 20 June, that's a morning one. We're going 9 to 1 o'clock. Actually, it'd be more like 12:30 because we have to be cleaned up and out of there by 1 o'clock. Same place we did before, over in Coffee County at the Veterans Admin Building. And that address is 130 Shelton Road in Manchester. Yeah. And then, like I said, 9 to 11. So far, myself, Rocky Jones, have RSVP'd my event. I would like to think I'll make it. But there for as congressional candidates, the 22nd of May is the RSVP date for any other Republican congressional candidates, and also gubernatorial candidates. They've been invited. Haven't heard back from any one of them yet. And for the gubernatorial candidates, I have decided this time to let their reps, if they show up, to give the little 5-minute intro for whoever they're representing, but they will not sit up on stage and answer questions. That will be if you as the candidate decide to show up and sit on the stage and answer the questions. Again, town hall format, same as we did before, which all you as the audience participants will write down whatever questions you have. You can also submit these questions ahead of time, either email them to us at tomdavistn4.com or at gmail.com. And we'll have them there, and candidates will answer them. So do that, but primarily it'll be those of you in the audience write your questions down, and then moderator. I'm still working on the moderator, so we'll announce that once we have that nailed down. But then the moderator, and you'll get 3 minutes to answer the questions. Maybe less. 3 minutes was. I don't think I needed 3 minutes, but some others like to talk a little bit more. So we'll see. It just depends on who shows up, how many people show up. If we got a lot of questions, we'll probably tighten it up a little bit and be a little more concise with the answers. So there we go about that. Let's get back to topics here. My thing is saying my chat was been disconnected. We're back. So good stuff. With that, let's go ahead and get into some topics right now for today. The hot topic going on right now is the redistricting for Tennessee, and some other states are going through this as well. But here in Tennessee, it has impacted us. And then let's see. We'll just do it this way. Thought I had it up. We'll do this too. 82 days, 15 hours, and 50 minutes until actual election day. I think early voting starts on July 17th, I think. In fact, that's where we're going next. Well, we'll talk about maps or the redistricting. I don't think that's the one I wanted. Oh, yeah, it was. All right, perfect. Go back one more. Okay. So the counties that we now have in Tennessee's 4th Congressional District are Franklin, Marion, Sequatchie, Bledsoe, Van Buren, Warren, Grundy, Coffee, Cannon, Rutherford, and then they cut out a little chunk of northwest Rutherford and then pushed us into that kind of south east corner of Davidson. So part of Nashville is what we got, and how they shook it, or how they lined it out. So that is now the 4th Congressional District for Tennessee. So it changed it up quite a bit for us. Well, somewhat. So really, we lost Miggs and Ray in the east, and then we lost Bedford, Moore, was that Lincoln, Giles, and Lawrence counties on the west side of what it used to be. So, and if you don't know, I'm in the middle of it. I live in Warren County, so I stayed in the district. I actually will live in the district once elected. So that's a solid thing as you start looking at candidates if it changed for you. I mean, you figure it out who you want representing you. But to me, if you don't live in the district, yeah, that's just I don't know. Again, you guys, we all elect our own representatives. That's just a personal deal for me that I don't care for that if someone doesn't live in the district. But to each his own. So with that, that redistricting does require some of us to put a little more effort, figure out our new candidates and what our current representative has been doing, which in the case of Tennessee's fourth, not a lot, but we'll see how it shakes out. Now, and what has happened, so this was last Thursday that this got approved, and then lawsuits were filed immediately just because I don't know, these folks need to figure out the Voter Rights Act. Nobody is being disenfranchised. What this is about control and power, and even that's disingenuous. I mean, you look at Steve Cohen, who's representing they elected this who is now an old white guy to represent a predominantly black district. But I mean, the opposite is true also. There's districts out there predominantly white are represented by black folks, which, again, you go cast your vote for whoever you want, and that's how it shakes out. But these ones that are kicking and screaming with their hair on fire, like, have some better ideas. And then, and I say also to my own party, this is I'm good. I'm good with the redistricting. It looks a little funky to me. I was not inside the rooms, but and it's definitely, I mean, they were honest about that and straight up and saying they're redrawing these lines by political parties, which, okay, you show the makeup of Tennessee is predominantly, I think is it 70-30, something like that, Republican and Democrat. So you still get a vote. It's just your ideas suck, and you've become a party. It's a death cult. So anyway, but I, to me, it looks a little weird, and I think they drew lines to protect, maybe to help some incumbents, maybe to hurt some other ones. I think Andy Ogles has got they did not help that guy out like at all. And then now these guys, was it Charlotte Bergman? I think she was running in the 9th district over there, and I think she's still going to run in the 9th. But now you got the other guys jumping in because they opened it up for other folks to jump in. Which, okay, you got, again, figure out which Republican you want representing you and hit the polls. And like I said, the screaming from our these Democrats is just, it's ridiculous. Nobody's being losing their right. What they're thinking, what they're wanting to do is about power and control. You're not representing anybody, especially when you're at the state capitol. They lighting stuff on fire and just acting a fool. That doesn't help anybody. I hope any of these guys that are doing that stuff would lose their seats, but hard to say if that happens. They did, however, get removed from all their committees, except for the ones required by, that require some representation on there. But yeah, just if you're going to act like that, just sit down. You got no business representing people, in my opinion. But so there is that. Now, how this affects me and our campaign and what we're doing is, look at it from the advantage point. Disadvantage first, because I do want to mention this. Because I've been in the previous lines, the districts out there, and have met some great people, made some friends. So on the downside is, I will not be going out there as much and seeing these folks that I've met, and I've made some calls, and I'll still do that even when I am elected. Those folks that are not in the district anymore, because it's some opinions that I value quite a bit. But so that's kind of the downside is I'm not going to have maybe as much contact with a lot of these folks that I've met out, especially Lawrence County. Big shout out to those guys. Giles has been good, and Lincoln also, and then and out in Meigs and Ray. That's met some good folks out there. So I am going to miss some of that. On the upside for the campaign, it consolidates it geographically. So I picked up 2 counties that actually border Warren. So a little bit easier to, just to take a short drive and push over into Van Buren, or going the opposite way into Cannon County. And then even to get to that little corner of Davidson, because we'll get out there and show them guys some love too. But, it's pretty accessible now. About 2.5 hours sometimes to get out to Lawrence County. So, as far as positives, and then even the stuff I have done so far in Cannon and Van Buren counties has been pretty productive, and a lot of good responses. So, looking forward to keep doing the thing. Like I said, we got 82 days. Is that where we were at until the actual election? So we got some work to do, and we're getting after it. This week I was in both of those counties. Cannon County, on Wednesday, I went and talked to the Vietnam Veterans of America. Great bunch of folks out there. I always enjoy talking to those guys, Vietnam guys, and hearing some of their stuff, and showing my respect for them. And I told them, and I've said it before, that myself as in my era of veteran, Desert Shield, Desert Storm vet, coming back from that, it was a concern that, we heard the talk like, oh my gosh, they're protesting, and I don't know if it was true for those guys, but for a lot of us, because we didn't know when we were coming back. We deployed, we're out doing the thing, and sat down, and I was Desert Shield and then Desert Storm. And, you're sitting around in the desert, and you hear these things, and it got to a point where it's just like, don't even care how the American people react to this, or support for it or not. Let's just get it done so we can go home. And then finally it all worked out. But then coming back, it does kind of weigh on you a little bit. And so I always thank those guys for the bull crap that they went through, or that the American people put them through. And then, because of their efforts and their, after that we did not have to do that. Yeah, there were folks protesting that, that war and all that stuff, but they didn't turn around and take it on us, the soldiers. And for that, I am truly grateful. I can't even imagine those guys coming back to you're doing the thing, you answer the call of your nation, and then you come back and these jackasses are, spitting on you and calling you a baby killer and all this ridiculousness. So, but talking to those guys, and part of that conversation out there was the VA clinic. So the closing of it here in McMinnville, a couple of those guys were impacted. In fact, the one guy, I think he actually is, I think he's from Warren County, or was, because the VVA here in Warren County had closed, or they shut down. And then I think he was transferring out there. And this was, I'm just sitting there, kind of minding my own business, talking with the guys I'm sitting next to. And he came in and he was talking to them, and for them at that end of the table, the discussion came up about the VA clinic. And one of the items discussed was accessibility over at Arnold Air Force Base. And he made the comment about it, that it was easier for him to get into Vietnam than it was for him to get onto Arnold Air Force Base to receive his medical care. And again, this is something I've talked about, and to see it, and I didn't necessarily want to be proved right on that, but to have it be, and to meet somebody that it had impacted, it's like, yep, here we go. And like we do, it's dropped off. Our rep isn't talking about it anymore. We're seeing all the gaslighting out of the VA, how great of an organization it is. And they don't get me wrong, the people inside, most cases they do, they want to help veterans. And so the biggest problem is the administration of this. And, sadly, just like most government things where they they may not be the best entity to handle some things. Um, the VA again is a very bloated agency. It's hard to navigate, and so I believe we can do better, and especially in this day and age. My idea has just kind of been we get the card with all our stuff on it, whatever type of access you're authorized to get based on your service, or however we decide to do it for veterans. But then I just take this card and go like, look, here I am. I need to be seen. Pick your primary provider, whatever, and then they just bill it normal, or whatever the going rate is, and just go from there. But right now we have all this administrative nonsense to go through, and yeah, it's not a lot of fun. And there are some guys out there have had some good experiences with it. Mine has been a mixed bag. Not super excited about a lot of it. And then again, it's complicated. So I wound up last year coming out of pocket when I probably didn't need to, but it's because I didn't know, and that's on me not knowing the system. But again, it's not easy to navigate. So all right, all that back around. Let's get back on our to the congressional districts. The districting was what we were talking about. So yeah, for the campaign, it'll tighten us up a little bit. Looking forward to meeting some new friends. But that's what we're so in Cannon County, and talking to the VVA also, and how I came about that was that weekend. I guess whatever the date was, where are we at? Last Saturday, it was I guess it would have been the 8th. The good old days in Woodbury was out wandering around, and that's where I met the guys there from the VVA, and he told me about the meeting and scheduled me to come talk to those guys. And so I did, and then also the American Legion there, met those guys, very involved in the community. So that was awesome. And so walking around for that, and then there in Canada, and then Monday I went out to Van Buren County they had a meeting. Keep Van Buren rural as a town, kind of a town meeting. It wasn't anything official with the town, so but it was just the concerned citizens, and it got set up, and it was about a Bitcoin mining operation that the guy is trying to get permitted to put into their industrial park. I attended that meeting, and that was very interesting. And this is a big issue, and I don't know, as we talk about it, like nationally, how we can handle it, and I don't know that there is nationally to try and kind of navigate this thing. I do believe it's more of a local and a state issue to manage these data centers, because they are, and it's something that we need. I mean, we all love our AIs now. I guess not all of us, but in our internets, and that's where these things are. It's not just some magical place that the internet happens. There are physical locations to the internet, and that physical location is these data centers. And so to be able to process all that, yada yada. But these facilities are huge. This Bitcoin mining operation was not. I think it was 2 or I think 4. And I'll go big because I didn't catch like the actual size of the Connex, but we'll call it a 40-foot Connex. So a shipping container. Everything's housed inside of there. The only thing they're dipping into is the electric grid, and even that they have talked with the TVA and checked they're only going to pull their power from their power from the non-peak hours. So middle of the day type stuff. That operation will be shut down, pulling no energy. Basically, as easy as I can say it is, they're going to come in, they're going to make the ground a little bit level. And again, this is in their industrial park, and it's close to the transformer, so they will run electricity to it, but that's it. They'll level the ground, drop these connexes, the power will be ran to it. They'll plug them in, and then they'll run at the non-peak hours, so kind of through the night. At one end, there's an industrial fan, which the guy that was presenting it, the reference was made to the to some of the buildings out there already that have these fans. So it sucks the air in, goes through a filtration process, and then gets blown out the other side. And he's saying that the air is actually cleaner coming out the other side. They can mitigate some of the sound. Even those fans, they generate, I don't know, whatever the term is, but it's like 65, 75. Some of the folks out there were making it super weird for this dude. But even at the high ends, they call it the 75 decibels. But in the process of permitting and going through and putting these things out there, and he can point them in a direction so that there's stuff between anybody that's close to the industrial park that may be impacted by these fans, because the noise, like it drops off as it goes away from the source. Just like your little, you drop the pebble in the pond, it ripples out, and then it goes, it goes to nothing. And if you have something in between there, it deadens the sound. And if required, he can put up some, an artificial barrier to do it. But there was enough stuff out there anyway. So that is not a data center. And that's what, we get confused about. And it's a lot to keep track of. So I can kind of understand that. But the data centers are ginormous operations. I mean, thousands of acres. I think one was, I heard like 60 square miles. I was watching a thing on it yesterday. But these things they huge energy requirements as far as electricity. And these things are not shutting off. They're full go 24 hours a day, and enormous amounts of energy draw. And then in addition to that, cooling them. And the one I saw is like 5 million gallons of water a day that it runs through. And then there's a light issue. I'm like, why do these things need to have, again, this is a thing you set up, you build it. During the process, I'm sure, construction, they're probably running 24 hours a day. So I don't know if once they get the construction complete and then they turn a switch, like if they're still, pushing all this light into the sky. But if they are, I'm like, that's crazy talk. Why would you need to light this data center up on the outside like that? But that was one of the concerns that these folks were filming it, and like, here's the noise half a mile away, and it was ridiculous. And again, there's some things that can be done, but this is back on that local level. Here in Tennessee, we have the County Powers Act, and this is where you get to your county, your county commissioners, or even in even in the cities, your alderman or whatever the phrase is, or the label is that you have for these folks, and start putting the restrictions on it, moratorium. I talked about this last week, I think, in Sequatchie, how they shut down any future development until they get caught up just with their water meters. They said, we're not issuing any more water meters, so that means you can't build any new houses. So there are some tools out there. People just have to to come together and talk to their commissioners about this and be like, hey, you guys need to press this. Again, it's you get that grassroots effort, and us just standing around screaming at town hall meetings is probably not the right answer. The right answer is before those meetings happen, go to those committee meetings and talk to your commissioners. Be like, look, this is what we need to do. We need to put, and it'd be different for each county, but put these constraints in there. If you don't want it at all, then you have the ability to put that, however you figure it out for the zoning and the ordinance to it prevents that. If you do want them, however you want to, make sure they're one, so it doesn't impact everybody with the power draw, then you put in the zoning, put in the ordinance that they must provide their own power. They must provide their own cooling, because that is the other. And they start and force these folks to figure out some different ways to cool these systems. A way might be, bury these things, put them in the, and it's going to cost more, but bury them and use the cooling from the earth, and go find some old school ways that we used to do some things to provide cooling in the houses. So that was Van Buren. This week I was out there, and I drove back out again. They had another meeting yesterday on it. I opted to stay out of that one just because there was a lot of people there. It looked like, and I don't know, they had, I mean, I don't, yeah, it didn't look like a good place for me to be trying to, pass out cards. And they had their own issue on their hands. The Monday when I went out there, it worked out pretty good. But so anyway, that's some hot topics going on for that, from all that from the redistricting, and who knows? I think Tennessee, just my personal opinion, probably pretty solid for the map to hold up, to judicial review or whatever you want to call it. So there is that. All right, enough on the redistricting. Let's move on to okay. Want to make sure, I think we'll run through the comments, so I'll make sure I leave time for that. So surveillance, FISA, and constitutional rights is my next area we'll cover. This is a big one, and our representative Scott Desjardins voted yes to leave it as it is, give an extension. As it is horrible idea. And this is another one, poorly written legislation from the 70s that, with good intentions, has now turned into a crap show. And I say that because now what we're getting is these warrantless searches, and our agencies, our three-letter agencies, being able to buy the information from these private organizations and then sift and sort and go through, and as we have seen, 100% abuse this stuff and abuse us as citizens. And it's just, I support a law enforcement within the context and within the confines of the Constitution. If you go develop your, you have reasonable suspicion, develop your probable cause, get your warrant. And that was, and it was Nick Freitas, not Fuentes, but I was watching one of his deals about this, and he said 97%, and I don't doubt him. 97% of these FISA warrants are approved. So at that point, are these really controls for our agencies, or is it just another step they have to take? But it needs to be redone, and and clearer legislation to rein in these agencies that are absolutely abusing the power. And if we think just because the president changed that all this corruption and abuse of power that's been going on we've gotten rid of it, no, we changed some folks at the top, maybe some mid-level, but all those guys just blindly going after it and abusing, they're still there. But nobody's paid the price for any of those FISA warrants. So, and like I said, our rep voted yes. Like, yeah, let's just keep doing it. That's a horrible idea. Here's the thing, and I've said this. Liberty is a dangerous venture, and I mean, just life in general is a dangerous venture. So how are we going to live it? And if we're under the impression that our government gets outside of its scope of responsibility, that they do good, we're wrong. And a lot of this, and then the founding of this nation, was on individual responsibility, you handling your own business, and we've really gotten away from that. In fact, this week I was asked what are you going to bring to Tennessee? Well, and my answer is let's get DC out of Tennessee. If we leave folks, the ability to manage their own business at the local level, at that level. I mean, that's from the Army. Solve problems at the lowest level. These jackwagons in Tennessee or in DC, they don't know what's going on in Tennessee's 4th congressional district, and now we got to fight for scraps, like all the grants and all that business. That's the situation. They rake all this money away from us, and then we have to go beg for grants to manage our affairs, and it's just absolutely ridiculous. And we've already seen the fraud, waste, and abuse, plus administrative fees. That people that are actually doing the work they need to get paid. But let's shrink it. Let's get the federal government back within the confines of the contract, the Constitution, and life will be much better, way more better without. And some of these things that we argue about are much better handled with through civilian enterprise and through the local government, even in some cases doing the job. And that was and there was a she talked about a bill. It was for healthcare, and I'm and without reading it, my knee jerk is like, well, healthcare is constitutionally, the federal government is got no business in your healthcare. Um, so that's kind of my first on it. But okay, I'll at least take a look at it before I really comment on it. But the reason our healthcare is so expensive is because of federal government involvement. And if we'd have some actual leadership in Washington D.C. I mean, how long have they threatened now about Obamacare to defund it and get rid of it, which they absolutely should. That's a train wreck. But we got such weak Republicans that they won't do it. I mean, look at the SAVE Act. I mean, and again, was that an 80-20 issue? Like, how hard is it? Yeah, it's show ID, show you're a citizen to vote in the doggone federal elections. I'd say any election, you should be a citizen, but well, what do I know? So all the way back around, reel us back in here to the FISA and our constitutional rights. Liberty is dangerous, my friends. And we should not be in fear of our own government. That's a horrible idea. And that's exactly FISA in its current state and how it's being done. That's what they're doing, and they need to stop. So there's that. And so we'll move on to the next one here. And this is, a lot of this is the usual topics, which this one is as well. Spending inflation and the reality, facing us as families. And we're starting to see this, and not starting to, but really noticing now the gas bill, in with myself and my household. And I do a lot of driving covering the district, and I have seen a significant increase. Obviously, I just roughly $4 a gallon. Yeah, that adds up. If I'm filling up every other day, and I try. I top off at the lowest I typically let it get is about half a tank. But even at half a tank, I'm filling up at 10 gallons. We're talking $40, give or take. And if I'm doing that, every other day, run some numbers on it. And this affects everything. And going into grocery prices, going into any type of it, utility bills will be going up if they haven't already because of it. So, and this is, a lot of this is because of our government. Again, we have allowed our manufacturing to go overseas. We're tied, our local economies and as a nation, our economies are tied to the world. We have the petrodollar now. This whole deal we got going on with China, one hand they're telling us they're our biggest adversary, but on the other hand, we got we're tied to them. I mean, how much stuff is can we not produce now in this country because we've pushed it all out with these horrible trade deals? NAFTA, I'm looking at you. And yeah, it's just crazy. So we need to, all the tariffs, all that business, it is Congress. Congress should be doing that. They're the ones. And then again, clear legislation. We've allowed our legislators to write just piss poor legislation, and then it gets over to the executive branch, and they're going to do what they're going to do. Agencies gone wild, and they regulate back and forth, and it changes back and forth from administration to administration. And so then right now we got because the Republicans are, in charge, and President Trump is getting after it. I mean, I'm not going to blame that guy. He's getting it done, but our legislators are dropping the ball. So then what happens, even let's say, even if we catch another, another Republican president this next go round, eventually, it swings back the other way. If we get a Democrat back in there, all that stuff is undone. And so then, right now, like I said, it's a Democrat screaming like, "Oh my gosh, no kings and democracy," and they're screaming their things. But flip it around, just like we did for when Biden was in office and Obama. These guys, they're legislating through executive order, and it's a horrible idea. So our legislators need to step up to the plate right now and push the America First agenda and do it. That Save Act, and then instead of talking about fiscal responsibility, actually do fiscal responsibility. Cut this foreign aid, and also cut the dang the refugees. Stop, close it down right now. And I'm not saying forever, but we should have a pause. I think Chip Roy's got the pause act out there. But and this all ties into affordability. We've pulled these folks over for the H-1B visa stuff. Cut that stuff out like right now, and start getting rid of it. I mean, we got these guys we've pulled over that are driving the tractor trailers on our interstates and are killing people because they oh my gosh, if you haven't driven in some of these countries, whew, yeah, I am not surprised. We've allowed the third world to come in here, and they're not looking to better themselves. In that case, the money gets sent back to wherever they're from. This is just like we saw in Saudi Arabia, Iraq, that area, with these third country nationals, the TCNs. And a lot of it is Filipinos. In this case, we're getting some folks from other places, India and wherever. But they come, they work there, and then they send everything they make back to their own country. So they're, they're paying taxes with stuff they buy, yada yada. And this is jobs Americans we've taken these jobs away from Americans. Trucking used to be a good thing to be into, make decent wages and do the things. But now it's turned into a freaking train wreck because the federal government is done some nonsense. So get rid of that stuff. The student visas, same thing. Stop it. Because these people are coming here. They're not here to help us out. They're not here to better themselves. They're here to infiltrate. They have got to go, and we have got to stop allowing it. And right now, Republicans, they're not doing. Yeah, they just complain about this. Oh, we don't have I mean, they tell us we got to have a super majority to get anything done. Nonsense. Knock it off. So there is that. All right, moving into the next one, and this we'll talk again about accountability, because this is, and like I said, this is usual topics, but yeah, we're not getting any type of leadership out of it. And obviously, I'm running against a Republican incumbent, so I'm going to talk specifically about him. But there are not a lot of these guys actually showing some leadership, to include over there in the Senate. And I'll talk about the Senate leader over there, John Thune. But we got our own senators. Why are they not jumping up and down, screaming? Why are they not working around like, hey, let's get a leader in here who will actually lead? Especially Marsha Blackburn. She's we're trying to anoint her or crown her already the governor of Tennessee. So technically, she gets that job. She's done over there. Why is she not tearing it up? But and calling this stuff out? I don't see it. Same thing out of Haggerty. It's just, you guys, man, just some nonsense. But in our rep, same deal. Now the VA clinic has kind of dropped off. They're moving on, getting our Happy Mother's Day posts and whatever thing we have to do every week. And don't get me wrong. Mother's Day especially, that's should, and I did. I called my mom, did stuff for my wife, whatever, but this is not we have so much stuff. It's like, what, how many things do we need to celebrate? It's Hallmark stuff. which, hey, good on the advertisers, right? Like, I'm gonna make up a holiday so I can sell more cards. Good on you, I guess. So I don't play, I don't do into a lot of that stuff. So um, and back to the transparency, and I'll keep talking about this. That resolution for the sexual misconduct cover ups, making that information available to us. That, to me, that's a no brainer. I'd have been on that. I would have voted yes to actually pass the legislation. What we got was a yes vote to send it over to committee to die. So Congressman Desjardins is completely fine by his votes with the sexual misconduct that goes on and covering it up. I am not. And again, some of the excuses we got was the victim's identity that was in there. I mean, it was like a one-page bill. I read it, and they were supposed to, or they would have redacted that information. And as far as you hear the due process deal, they don't give a rip about that unless it's a talking point for something like this. Like, well, due process. So I voted to put it to committee. Let's work on it a little bit. Yeah, no, and I say that, and we talked about this last week too, but it's still a thing. With Eric Swalwell, nobody's screaming about due process when they're starting to say the stuff about him, like, oh my gosh, he's been investigated, and they use it for political coverage or leverage, so they could get this guy out of the governor's race in California. So don't buy that crap about especially the due process stuff. They don't give a rip about due process unless it is a talking point like this. Well, I had to due process. No, knock it off. And again, for the victims, their information would have been redacted. And even now, with the Epstein stuff, like, where is the Epstein stuff? Clowns. But they're talking about the victims, and the victims are all coming forward, being like, yeah, I don't care. Let's have some accountability for this stuff. Yeah, and if they're investigating, tell us they're investigating. But this, to me, it's just we need to switch all these people out. And we need to replace them. I would say almost all of them, because they're not getting it done. That's my opinion, but yeah, we'll see how it goes. We just, I guess, got to get fed up enough as a people. Timing has to be right. So, and as I talk to people, they're I have heard some interesting ways of describing our congressional rep. Yeah, the Dejar lazy, I've heard. One guy called him a douche canoe. Yeah, a couple others. That's probably plenty for the live stream. And again, not my words. This is stuff people said out as I'm talking to them. But in most of the circles, and this is in the Republican circles, at the meetings, and just talking to most folks, they're like, yeah, they don't know, or they're ready for him to go. And I will say, I have found there are obviously people out there that are for the guy. I mean, look at the margins that he's won at primaries. Even when he's been opposed in a primary, there's been a couple of them that have been pretty close, but recently not so much. So again, feels like he doesn't have to show up. Hasn't done a town hall since 2013. Says they're too dangerous, or he's too busy for us, or some Democratic tactic. And I will say, I get that, but I will still do the town halls. Again, you can come, everybody's welcome, act like adults, or get treated like a child and sent to your room or wherever you leave. But you won't, you're not going to sit there and be disruptive to folks actually trying to get answers and be productive. So. All right, there is that. And then, okay, let's see. I don't think I had as many let me get the Facebook pulled up. And oh my gosh. Sorry, got sidetracked by this uh, the city of Tullahoma press release from the Coffee County Sheriff's Office. Wow. All right, I may have to read that later. Well, let's get into. Let me get over here into my comments. Did have some pretty good comments on there. So, but this is one I'm going to get to my man Steve Durham here. And this is about I posted this YouTube deal about our rural farmers, and it was from More Perfect Union, and talking about the struggles of our smaller farmers. And then and I did my own research off of this. And my man Steve, I don't know where you're getting your information from, but I believe you're wrong, and I think you're wrong because so he says farmers on average are 60K above the mean income in the USA, and just because you say fact at the end of that statement doesn't make it a fact, because my research was because what last I checked, the median income was like 44K a year, and the research I did is actual net profit. So understand this, Steve. When you look at your numbers, look at what they netted as their income, not the gross. After expenses, blah blah blah. They're in essence they're running their own job as a business, and so they have costs associated with that. So are you telling me they're profiting 60K a year? No. And then it doesn't even show up on the chat here to talk about this. But not a fact. And then where was the answer? But I'll read it. The constraint of the merchant is not the restraint of commerce. A merchant is no less crossed than in a country of slaves and is constantly constrained in a free country. Charles de Sconat, The Spirit of Laws. Okay, dude. Awesome. Open trade without government involvement is the answer, but according to Adam Smith, that is hard to reach. The government does have a part to play in it. I don't know. Look at the Commerce Clause, but they are too far, and we need to get it in check. And the overregulation or the regulation, even at that, and look at our farm bill, it favors the corporate farms. So that's where I don't know if you're talking about farmers on average, if you're counting the corporate farms in that, but I don't see it. So there we go. And then farm subsidies prop up prices, but since government money is there, more farmers jump in on that commodity, further driving down prices, crowding in, however, due to lacking the ability to stop foreign government subsidies to their farmers. Please tell me the answer logically. Logically, we stop favoring the large corporate farms with government subsidies. The other side of that is through the Commerce Clause, through our legislation, is then we do the tariffs. So for example, China subsidizing the mess out of, and this is a lot of different products, we tariff them to make it a level playing field. And again, if farmers want to compete in the world market, same deal. Maybe they need to look at the pesticides that they're putting expenses into. There's other ways to manage that. Same thing with fertilizers. There's other ways, crop rotations, but they feel like they have to grow soybeans and corn every year. And again, I'm not a farmer. I could be completely wrong on this. However, looked at some things, crop rotations, and the federal government has gotten in the way. For example, hemp. They just cracked down. Was it the last farm bill? Probably this one too, but they put in another barrier for hemp farmers. Knock it off. That is an amazing product or amazing plant. I don't know about product. For some folks, it is the CBD, the afterwards, but that very, very productive um, plant to be dealing with. So that's how we do it: is you get the government working like it should, and yeah, get rid of the subsidies and let them operate like a business, and but don't favor the corporate farms, and then some legislation on foreign nations purchasing land here in the United States. It's a thing now, so let's stop it. Any foreign corporations, foreign nationals, you should not own property here, or it should be a lengthy process. And I say that because there are other nations that allow foreign nationals to own property, but if we say no, we say no. We don't need to compare it to the other nations. So there we go. I don't know, Steve, and Steve's the one that alleged a 126 IQ. So it's just interesting to me sometimes the nonsense that the people jump up here and say. He might even be a bot. Who knows, man? That's AI Steve. Let's call him that. But no, he's got the blue check mark on there, so I don't know. Maybe he's legit. So, but yeah, that and I'll yeah. So more perfect union. Go check out some of their stuff. I kind of feel like they may be a little more leaning to the left, but it doesn't mean they don't make good points. You just got to pay attention to what they're saying and what they're pitching. This one, they talk to this guy, and I know some farmers. The smaller ones, I go to our farmers markets and talk to the folks there. And this is something we've talked about. Why in the world somebody here in Tennessee? Why do they have to comply federally if they're only growing and competing here in Tennessee? They should have pretty much zero to do with the federal government. Just how it is. Maybe if they do it as an LLC, you got to do that. But then after that, it should be all state regulated. That's just constitutionally, I believe I'm pretty sound on that. So there was that. Yeah, some comments about my Hawaiian shirts, especially the 82nd Airborne. Then here's what is this one in reference to? Karen Ackerley Templeton tells me, if you are MAGA, you are not Republican. Okay. This was just off of my intro video that I did, letting everyone know. Yeah, because of the redistricting. Okay, Karen, I know exactly what you mean, or I don't. I think we're getting hyped up about this divide. I think some of us, yeah. I mean, and again, you can't be lockstep with somebody. I've stated, we're running up on it here, but I have in the past talked about some or some, I would have been on looked at things differently than President Trump, but he's still, he is putting America first in most things. So I'm not going to break off and but I'm also not just going to, rubber stamp everything the guy says just because he's President Trump. I mean, at the end of the day, we've only got him for another couple of years as the president, and then somebody else steps in. So again, it comes back to the legislation. Whereas, we want to try and fight, about MAGA and Republican, and like let's put some energy into holding our representatives, our legislators' feet to the fire, and have them do the things. I don't know, just saying. So all right, well, thanks for the comment. If you want to, I don't know, she's just making a statement. Okay, thanks, Karen. I don't know if it, directed at me or whatever. Yeah, and some, had some folks jumping on, saying, give me some advice. Let's see. Here's another one. We'll walk through this one real quick. We already talked about this with my man Steve, talking about he doesn't give a shit about my service now. It mean very little, dude. I don't know if that's intentional, but if you're telling me you got a 126 IQ, I'm thinking maybe you could make a little more sense on there. I don't know. So at any rate, Okay, so again, we'll wrap up again. We'll wrap up. Remember the 5th of June here in Warren County, out in Morrison, the fundraiser cornhole. Come on out, enter it, start your practicing, and win some money. And then July 11th or um, we have, is it July 11th? Yeah, something out there in Franklin. Oh, June 20th. That's the other one, the town hall. That's the main one's coming up. So the fundraiser and then the town hall. And then this week coming up, we're actually redoing some things for this week coming up. I'm sure we'll be. Oh, yeah, I'll be in Cannon County. I will be in Cannon County. We'll have folks out in Sequatchie and Van Buren at the GOP meetings and the conservative meeting. That's on Thursday. And then just kind of as they come up, I'm heading out to Viola this morning for lunch out there. You should see you'll see me out there with my little flag going on the back of the truck. If you're in that area, hit me up and we'll see. So yeah. So as we wind it down, hey, if we keep doing the same thing, we're going to keep getting the same thing. And what we've been getting is a nation being run into the ditch, fiscally and morally too. So let's send some different folks to Washington, D.C., get us back to the Constitution. You made it on here. Thanks. Drop some comments, do the things, watching all. I appreciate everybody that jumps in on this and anybody I get to talk to out there. So till the next one, this will defend.